What keeps you awake at night?
Sea levels are rising globally.
Fears fueled by horror stories.
Among the worst flu season in a decade, and it hasn't peaked yet.
We all know the atomic bomb is very dangerous.
Another series of deadly terror attacks.
I don't want to be blamed if you cannot get to sleep tonight.
All right, we're all ready to lock and load.
I guess.
I mean, what is locking and loading, really? You know?
Are we locked?
Well,
are we loaded?
Or are we dancer? So, Brianna, you wanted to start with a fun little tale.
Oh, well, have we talked about what's the technical term for it, Olivia?
For what?
For the noise thing, or not the noise thing that you do.
Whale noise.
Yeah, whale noise.
Yeah.
Right, so let me introduce this. I don't know if I've talked about it on the podcast, but I've seen the movie Blackfish about 6 times. And when they train orcas as they're big, what they do is this 3-second non-response. So the whale will come and open its mouth for fish, and if they've done something wrong, the trainer will hold for 3 seconds and not give them fish, and then continue as if the whale didn't open its mouth. It's the only way that you can train a whale.
Okay.
Now, I thought that this was an incredible idea, so I started applying it in real life. And I will say, the success rate of whale noise is incredible. Okay, so, Bree, say something fucked up. We're talking about something and just say something dumb.
Oh, the Earth is flat.
Anyway, the whale noise has a really incredible... do you see how uncomfortable that is for, everyone involved? Anyway, so that's the origin of the whale noise.
It's just
Bree got to apply it in real life the other day, and
right.
She has a great story.
It's the beauty of it is it's an awkward pause that you force on the conversation. You look them in the eye and you say, you caused this. So, I've never been able to use the whale noise, me, myself, in real life. Up until a couple weeks ago, I got to use the whale noise at a grocery store I was at when a man interrupted me and a friend's conversation just to just make his
shoot the
point
shit,
known.
huh?
Yeah, and I did the whale noise thing, and then grabbed my friend's hand and we moved along. But it's just such the pause is so beautiful, and he was so ashamed of what he did. And I feel like every time someone catcalls you, or just makes you uncomfortable in public, just whale noise.
Whale noise.
Someday, I hope to see the whale noise in action. I've only heard rumor of its effectiveness.
And hey, guess what? You can make it happen. Just one shitty man at a time.
We're gonna change the world.
That's gonna be the title of my autobiography: "Endless Suffering and Whale Noise." That's gonna be it.
Oh my god!
If you do the whale noise, please tweet me about it, because I want to know your experience.
I thought the title of your autobiography was gonna be just one shitty man at a time, and it was you, me,
poor Matt.
That's Breeze for sure.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah.
It'll be one chapter. It'll be and the Great Depression, describing my high school experience.
Oh my God.
And the next chapter is, and it gets worse? Question mark? Question mark? Question
and
mark?
And then the third chapter is, you'll never believe it. But it does escalate.
On that note, today
it gets worse.
Wait, do we introduce ourselves? I'm
hi.
Olivia.
I'm Brooke.
I'm Bree.
We are so bad at that.
But the most important thing is that we're all depressed. So we're gonna start this one off.
Okay. We're doing our last episode in the series of CIA cover-ups and conspiracies.
Yes.
Brooke is heading today with a surprise, and I predicted at the beginning of this series that this will be the most emotionally draining topic to date. Brooke, can you attest to that?
Look, all I'm saying is that when you spend 8 hours researching Nazis...
Nope. I'm alright. How about we don't? How about we just not today, boys?
Hard pass.
Well, I didn't have a choice, and now neither do you. So...
Love that.
Yeah.
Is it Operation Paperclip?
No!
It's Operation
What are you talking about?
Is it Operation Paperclip?
Yeah, it's Operation Paperclip. Okay.
I know very little about Operation Paperclip.
So, I didn't know very much either. I actually knew way less than I thought. Because it's a thing that, like, people throw out in pop culture. A friend of mine made a tweet that referenced Operation Paperclip. Shout out to Graham. That was an underappreciated tweet, and it should have gotten more action. But today,
Graham?
Yeah, Graham. Today, we are going to explain to the whole world what actually happened. Because on paper, and this is going to sound really bad, because I know I just said... I know I just said that Nazis are involved, so by consequence, this is kind of a not so great thing. But on paper, it doesn't look that interesting. Because there's not a lot to say. So I think I'm just going to dive right in.
Yay.
You'll get it. Anyway, technically, this wasn't yet the CIA. So it was a secret program. Operation Paperclip was a secret program that was headed by what was known as the Joint Intelligence Objectives Agency, or JIOA for short. And that was the name for what became the group of foreign and domestic members of this operation. So they made their own group, and it was carried out by the Army CIC, which was the Counterintelligence Corps.
Okay.
And the CIA is descended from them. So later, it goes into the CIA as the story goes on, but it's a technicality. Sue me. This is my thing. So.
Very extra.
It's technically the CIA, and if you disagree, you can fucking tweet at me.
Take it up with my lawyer, okay?
Go on Twitter. At me. Let's do this.
Don't at me. So, towards the end of World War II, Germany, they found themselves at sort of a logistical disadvantage after their plot to take over the USSR somehow failed. Their operations to try and take over the USSR had left them completely dissolved of resources, and they were incapable of defending themselves for the Red Army's counterattack, which was definitely gonna happen. So, in 1943, Germany started recalling scientists, engineers, and technicians from combat to resume their research and bolster German defenses from the USSR's imminent attack. So included in this recall were 4,000 rocketeers, which were all removed from the front lines. So basically, these people who were specialized in the sciences had been put on the front lines to do jobs like truck driving and cafeteria worker, etc.
I'm sorry. You're telling me Nazis were reassigned to be cafeteria ladies?
I mean, yes.
Oh, I am thrilled.
I mean,
so
it's
far.
kind of beautiful. But the bottom line was that they didn't have enough ground force, so they just started moving people to the front lines, right? So their recall of the researchers essentially included two things: identifying and locating all of them, and there were a lot, and then evaluating whether or not they were still politically and socially loyal to the Nazi Party. So, a man named Werner Osenberg, or Ossenberg, don't at me, please, created a list of all of the technicians, scientists, and engineers, etc., who were cleared, and then they returned them to work. So, a year later, in March of 1945, at Bonn University, a Polish worker found that list, which is now known as the Ossenberg list, and it was stuffed into a toilet, which I love. The list got to MI6, who eventually transmitted it to the United States intelligence. So, U.S. Army Major Robert B. Staver, who was the chief of the Jet Propulsion Section of the Research and Intelligence branch of the U.S. Army Ordnance Corps, used the Ossenberg list to compile his list of German scientists to be captured and interrogated, because they figured, hey, we want to beat the Nazis. Well, we already beat the Nazis, but we want to know what they know, right? So, the top of this list was a man named Werner von Braun. Do you know who that is?
He sounds
That's okay.
so familiar.
You don't need to, because technically, there would be no reason for you to know. But at the time, he had been Germany's premier rocket scientist. For reference, von Braun designed the V-2, also known as Vengeance Weapon 2 rockets, that were based on an American physicist, Robert H. Goddard's research. And
I know Goddard.
Yeah, so
yeah,
those...
actually, I think he has, like, atomic theory books that I use.
Like in class?
So, actually, I feel like my friend might be related. Listen, that doesn't matter. Continue on.
Way to name drop a physicist.
All right.
That's impressive.
Yeah, I'm familiar with Goddard.
I know
Not only
Goddard.
do I Not only do I study him personally, but one of my friends. Hold on, let me mix my brandy in the glass that I'm drinking from.
Yes. I think I can afford brandy as a physics major. I like put food coloring in water, and I'm like, oh yes, I'm familiar.
Finally,
like 99-cent store apple juice.
Jesus.
Sorry,
So
continue,
Goddard,
Brooke.
I guess. His research was used to develop the V-2 rockets that were used in the bombings of the United Kingdom, France, Belgium, and the Netherlands. It was also the first long-range guided ballistic missile ever. More importantly, slave labor from concentration camps were used to build the rockets, and it is said that more people died from building them than from actual detonations. Von Braun also was known to personally hand-pick the slaves that would be used to build the rockets. So we've got a good dude on our hands, right, guys?
Oh my god! I'm sorry. That's like Bond level villain evil.
Yes,
Hey,
yeah, no,
Olivia.
and it's
Like my jaw dropped.
Hey, Olivia.
You know?
How do you feel about that humble brag about 15 seconds before?
Hey, Goddard was not the guy who did this. His research was used by Von Braun. So Goddard is an alright dude.
Goddard is okay.
He's okay in my book until
For
I find
now.
out something terrible about him. But
If
for
he tweets
now...
me, it'll ruin my day.
No. For now, Von Braun is the guy that we hate. So he was the top of this list. And he was brought in for questioning. And the initial project was known as Operation Overcast. So Major Staver's intention at first was to just interview these people, but the information he found drastically changed their mission statement. On May 22nd, 1945, he transmitted a telegram from Joel Holmes to the Pentagon, urging them to evacuate all the scientists on the Ausenberg list and their families out of Nazi-controlled territory, saying they were, quote, important to the Pacific War effort. So, any questions so far?
No, I'm Gucci.
Okay.
Yeah.
So far, the goal is just to get them out of Nazi Germany, right? It's the only goal.
Yep.
So they found out, some of the information that they found out from these people was that Hitler had apparently been working on developing a bubonic plague weapon. Which is...
Yikes. Why did
And
I
he-
picture, 1,000 rats just, dropping out of the sky?
Yeah, it's just a rat gun.
Can you imagine there's people in there, they're like, if we mutate this specific microbe, we can put it in the bomb, and one dude is walking in and mopping the floors, and he's like, hey, wild thought, what if we just put the rats in it? And the
Let's
scientists
just grow a bunch
pause
of rats
and they're
on
like,
top.
Can we do
oh
that?
shit.
Life
Oh
hacks.
my god.
Load
That's
a gun with
horrific.
rats. So
That's horrific.
Like a what is it? Like a t-shirt cannon with infected rats.
gross. Wouldn't it be the
Sewer rats,
fleas, though?
gross big boy rats, you know what I mean?
Right, but
Like the ones that have killed a man and
Yeah,
lived
yeah.
to.
he's got
They've
a
definitely
scar
tasted
across
human
his
flesh.
eye.
Yeah.
He's like,
yeah.
I remember the first life I took.
God.
Just flicks his cigarette, and they're like, that's the rat.
That's
the
him.
one.
Breed him.
That's him. We
So
need him.
yes, they had a bubonic plague weapon. Cool. He also had an
Sick.
entire
Dope.
arsenal of nerve agents. And eventually, the U.S. heard about these insane doomsday weapons, and instead of being revolted by the inherent human rights violations that would go along with them, decided they wanted them for themselves. So, most of the people on the
Ain't that just
Ausenberg
the
list.
way?
Say again?
Ain't that just the way?
It just
Yeah,
is the
it's
way.
just the way.
God. So most of the people on the Ausenberg list, they worked at the V2 factories, so they were systematically moved to Bavaria in South Germany, and essentially this functioned like kidnapping, sort of, but really polite kidnapping. So by 1947, the evacuation had netted about 1,600 scientists and 3,700 of their family members, and they all got a telegram that was like, the military orders you to go here, bring only the things you can carry, thanks. And then they did it. So that's
It
nice.
said thanks at the end? That's
It
polite.
didn't say thanks. I made that up. I lied to
Wow.
you. I'm so sorry.
I'm sure the
If you
letter
c-
was more official than that, Olivia.
Just a
Sorry.
touch. But only barely. So If the scientists had specialized skills, they were taken to detention or interrogation centers and grilled, sometimes for months at a time. Don't feel bad for them. They're Nazis. It's fine.
Okay.
So, while some of these 1,600 people were involved in Operation Overcast, most of them were simply held in small villages and paid a stipend just to kind of exist there, because there were no factories or work for them, so they basically stagnated by military mandate, so they were paid. The U.S. government essentially had orders to hold them until all of their operatives were satisfied that they'd gotten any useful information. So, they could do whatever they want. That's pretty cool. So,
That seems fine and not that's fine.
Right. So, those deemed useful to American intelligence were brought to the United States to work in government positions. I'm going to say that again. Those Nazis that seemed useful to American intelligence were brought to the United States to work in government positions.
Okay, but were they qualified
No,
candidates?
Olivia, I don't want this. I don't want you to even utter
Even as a
another
joke,
word.
I can't handle it.
I can't do this.
Yeah, that seems about on par with American policy. I'm just like, yeah, that's
Yeah, that seems
something
right.
we would probably do.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
initially, the on-paper intention was to keep the scientists and use them for informational purposes only, while keeping the knowledge that they had out of the Soviet Union. That was the goal. Records actually show that President Harry Truman had forbidden the JIOA from recruiting former Nazis or current Nazi supporters, but that directive had been circumvented by the systematic whitewashing or just total destruction of incriminating evidence of war crimes. So that's cool. Their belief...
Don't they have to release that, though?
Shut up!
Get out of my ass.
Oh, man, I love
God.
that.
Oh, fuck.
It made for such a
going.
good little snippet. Anyway, so, yeah, they just destroyed evidence, because whatever. Their belief was that the scientists were crucial to the post-war effort, especially against Japan and eventually the Soviet Union. I just want to point this out, and I didn't know where I was going to put this, but remember von Braun, the guy we were just talking about?
I recall.
You recall? You do?
recall.
It's interesting to note that Werner von Braun was eventually made the director of NASA's Marshall Space Flight Center and was the chief architect of the Saturn V launch vehicle, which eventually was responsible for getting American astronauts on the fucking moon. Yeah, we were in
appalled.
part sent to the moon by a Nazi.
By a Nazi.
Yeah, no, they're that's a that part of American history, and the rest of the parts as well.
Also, the
generally,
others.
American history hasn't been great.
No.
Yeah. So that's a thing that happened. And this is what I was saying was so simple about it, is that is kind of the end of the story. They hired 88 Nazi scientists to work for the United States. No oaths, no swearing fealty, not even a pretend sign here to prove that you're not still a Nazi. The U.S. did the legwork for them to make all of their past atrocities disappear. But it was more than just scientists. The U.S. also prioritized gaining as much intelligence on the Soviet Union as possible. To do that, they recruited a man named Reinhard Gehlen. Probably. Last name is a little fuzzy on the pronunciation. I did my best. Reinhard was a former head of Nazi intelligence operations against the Soviets and Hitler's master spy. With full United States blessing, he created what was known as the Gehlen Organization, which was a band of 600 Nazi agents who had reactivated their networks in Russia. Now.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I can't believe.
But we're the good guys.
Aren't we?
Are we the baddies?
This is the bad place. So, I could go all day long about, I just said 600 Nazi agents. I'm going to talk about 3 of them. No, 4 of them? 4 of them, sorry.
Don't forget the 4th one.
Not the 4th
Come
one.
on.
all Nazis are important. Do not quote me on that. My God, if that gets taken out of context.
It's out there. Haha.
Anyway, so we're going to talk about 4 of them.
Okay.
These people were SS intelligence officers Alfred Six and Emil Augsburg, a man named Klaus Barbie. Does anyone know who Klaus Barbie is?
Nah, but the fact that they're
bit?
SS is enough to tell me that it's gonna get really messy.
And finally, Otto von Bolschwing, I think? Okay.
Oof.
I just want to go over who these 4 people were, and I say people loosely. So let's start from the top.
I love that your manic energy is just
I am
like in a logarithmic scale increasing.
I can't stress this enough. I finished all of the research, especially on this part, because this is sort of the finale. And it's long, so don't get the wrong idea. But this was the last thing I went through. And when Christian got home that night, I yelled for like 45 minutes about everything I had learned. So without further ado, we're going to start with Dr. Franz Alfred Six. He went to the University of Heidelberg for journalism, sociology, and politics. But he graduated late because he kept having to drop out to earn more money for school. It was a rough time, economically, you get it. And eventually, he became a real live journalism professor at the University of Königsberg. Then, he became the chair of foreign political science at the University of Berlin, and the first dean of the Faculty of Foreign Countries by 1939. Yikes. So, he joined the Nazi Party in 1930, which also happens to be the year he graduated high school. Oh, right, and his job was that of a student organizer when he joined the party. What was his actual career again? Oh, right, he was a teacher. I'm sure that's fine. Anyway.
How's your audio doing?
Probably peaked a couple times so far. Oh, yeah, it's looking pretty red. I wasn't even watching. Anyway.
This is how the Alex Jones editors must feel.
I can't imagine. We'll balance the levels, guys, I promise.
Keep going.
So, yeah, teacher, student organizer for the Nazi Party. It's all fine. He made a pretty good name for himself academically and was eventually promoted to the head of Amt 7 of the Reich Main Security Office, better known as the RSHA. It matches in German, don't worry about it. This division was in charge of the ideological section of the Nazi regime, so anti-Semitic and anti-Masonic propaganda, the sounding of public opinion, the monitoring of Nazi indoctrination by the public, etc., etc. It's all business. And in September of 1940, he was ordered to plan the elimination of anti-Nazi movements and sentiments in Britain after an invasion. An invasion that never happened, but this was his job. He was supposed to plan the elimination of anti-Nazi movements in Britain. So, a brief summary of his responsibilities included detaining around 2,300 people, including politicians, writers, philosophers, exiled members of government, financiers, and anyone else perceived to be against the Nazi Party. One person, namely Winston Churchill, would be transferred to RSHA Amt 6, but most everyone else would be handed right over to the Gestapo. He was also charged with the creation of 6 task forces that would be stationed in Manchester, London, Birmingham, Liverpool, Bristol, and either Edinburgh or Glasgow. They would essentially be death squads whose only job was to murder civil resistance members and the Jewish all over Great Britain.
Wow.
Right. So when Hitler gave up on the idea of invading Great Britain, he became the chief of Vorkommando Moscow, which reported liquidating 144 people, which is apparently the Nazi way of saying murder. He was then promoted twice by Heinrich Himmler himself for exceptional service. Right. So then he was tried as a war criminal during the Nuremberg trials, but he only served 10 years and was not linked to any of the atrocities for which he was responsible directly.
Mm-hmm.
And then we hired him. Anyway, next up is Emil Augsburg, And there's a lot less on him. The story's pretty simple. He was born in Poland. He learned to speak both Polish and Russian and earned a doctorate studying the press in the Soviet Union. So that's pretty cool. He became a member of the Nazi Party in 1934, and then from 1939 to 1944, he worked for the security police. The general job description was to arrange the executions of Jewish people and other, quote, enemies of the Reich in German-occupied Poland. He also became involved in the Wannsee Institute, which was a research center that was focused on studying politics and economics in the Soviet Union. And it operated out of an expropriated, here meaning stolen, mansion that had once belonged to the wealthy German Jewish Oppenheim family. After the war, the Institute's remaining information and valuables were transferred to any takers on where it was transferred to. Anybody. That would be the United States of America, ladies and gentlemen, transferred to the United States of American government via the Galen Organization.
That's us.
And that's us. After World War II ended, he was tried as a war criminal in absentia by the communist Polish authorities, but was never punished for his crimes. Now, why is that? Oh, right, because he was employed by the good old US of A. So that's cool. Moving on. Klaus Barbie, my personal favorite. Also known as the Butcher of Lyon.
Ooh, yeah, I know him.
Yeah.
Never mind. I know him.
He originally wanted to become a theology scholar. Too bad. After a run of bad luck, he was conscripted into the Nazi labor service and eventually joined the SS when he was 22 years old. I am 22 years old.
Yeah, it's young.
That's pretty
It's
damn young.
Mm-hmm.
So he worked for the SS Security Service, in which he retrieved intelligence for the Nazi Party, and when World War II began, he was assigned to Amsterdam, Dijon, and finally Lyon as the head of the local Gestapo. He set up shop in the Hotel Terminus, where he personally tortured both adult and child prisoners using electric shocks, breaking limbs, and sexually abusing them, just to name a couple methods. One personal story from a woman who was the daughter of a French resistance leader claimed that her father had been captured, beaten, skinned alive, and then dipped in ammonia until he died. I'm just gonna let you sit with that for a hot second.
Oof.
That's
Olivia,
that literally. There's not a lot of things that like I consider to be like truly evil. That's it. Like how? Okay, okay.
Yeah. So I'm gonna
That's
ask you.
pure evil.
I'm gonna ask you a question. How
Yep.
many people do you think that Barbie is single-handedly responsible for killing?
Ugh.
150.
Bree?
Okay. Oh God. 100, 200.
I'm gonna give you one more chance, and my only hint is much higher.
500.
Bree?
1,000.
It is estimated that Barbie is responsible for the deaths of about 14,000 people.
Got it.
It is recorded that he ordered the deportation of 44 Jewish orphans to the concentration camps at Auschwitz, and we remember what they did to kids at Auschwitz, do we not? After he was recruited by the United States, he was sent back to Europe to try and stop communist efforts there. He was stationed in French-occupied Germany, where his mission was to report on French intelligence activities because the United States was convinced that the French had been infiltrated by communists. The French had meanwhile sentenced Barbie to death in absentia for his many war crimes.
Good job.
And when they found out that he was working for the U.S. government, they pled to the U.S. High Commissioner for Germany, a man named John J. McCloy, that he be released into their custody for the sake of justice. McCloy refused and helped the CIC help Barbie escape to Bolivia. Barbie was eventually found in Peru and was tried for 41 separate counts of crimes against humanity based on 730 depositions. During his trial, this piece of shit had the audacity to say, and I quote, "When I stand before the throne of God, I will be judged innocently." Apparently that wasn't good enough for the court. He was sentenced to life in prison at 73 years of age, of which he served 4 years before dying of spinal and prostate cancer and leukemia.
I hope it was painful.
Good fucking riddance.
Yeah. I hope it fucking ruined him. I hope it was the most painful experience he's ever had to undergo. I hope it was horrific. Sorry, continue.
Do not apologize for hating Nazis here on this show. And finally,
Fuck that man.
we have...
Fuck that man.
Fuck that man, am I right, ladies?
Yeah.
Finally,
Ugh.
we have Otto von Bolschwing, who joined the Nazi Party at 22 as well. And he was assigned to foreign intelligence. He worked as an undercover agent in Mandatory Palestine, which doesn't exist anymore, where he gathered intelligence from young Jewish people, and he also was closely involved with one Adolf Eichmann. Do we know who Adolf Eichmann is?
It's not Hitler.
No. Adolf
Then
Eichmann.
I don't know any other Adolfs.
Adolf Eichmann
Olivia!
was the one who developed the final solution.
Oh. Okay, so bad.
And Otto
So
von
not a good
Bolschwing
dude.
became Adolf Eichmann's assistant and helped him develop it. Some historians assert that Bolschwing's motives were less out of anti-Semitism and more out of lust for power and money. I will leave you with this quote from his memorandum concerning Jewish emigration and let you decide. And I quote, "The most successful means of depriving the Jews of their sense of security is the wrath of the people that expresses itself in riots."
Hot take here. I don't think it matters whether or not it was out of anti-Semitism or power thing. I think he was a bad dude.
Maybe just a bad guy, huh? Bad guy.
But
Yeah.
also it was definitely he was definitely
Yeah, he also definitely
Anti-Semitic.
hated Jews. Like, he also definitely did that.
Can you imagine the historians like, guys, to say he's anti-Semitic is a little too far. He had a
That's
lust
the
for
point.
power.
Olivia-
And you
Yeah.
look at what he did, and you look at the historian, and you go, does it really matter?
Olivia-
I mean, but
Olivia-
the thing is,
But he was anti-Semitic. I just don't, you know?
Like, do we need to...
Even if it,
Do we need to
I'm
split
sorry.
hairs here? Also, I just want to say, the amount of fucking apologism in these documents that I read is insane. Like,
yeah.
there's a reason why I am so manic right now. Like, I was so angry reading these documents where people, not just the people who were involved, but historians, people who were just reporting on it, called this act by the US government controversial. It wasn't controversial, it was insane. It's inhumane.
Yeah.
It was morally
Yep.
corrupt. Anyway.
Yep.
Moving on.
back to the Google Doc.
Definitely anti-Semitic.
Definitely anti-Semitic. Are we taking a vote here? Please raise your hand if anti-Semitic.
I
Please
think
say
I
aye.
can see
that's
it, but my
unanimous.
hand is raised. Aye.
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 The
Okay.
ayes have it. Anti-Semitic. Anti-Semitic. So, when he was recruited by the United States, he told them that while he had in fact been a member of the Nazi Party, he had only been active to get the government to approve his building of a cement factory, and that in fact he had tried to stop Hitler. Now, the CIC
sorry,
was
keep
skeptical, but even after he had been positively identified as one of the higher officers in the SS, the US government decided to continue retaining his services for their purposes. One report went so far as to say that his past actions were, and I quote, relatively inconsequential, particularly in view of the subject's excellent service on our behalf. So, while he was living in Austria, under the employment of the United States, the Austrian government attempted to try him for his war crimes. In response, the now CIA shielded him from prosecution by claiming that there was no file available on him. They even went so far as to try and get him Austrian citizenship, and when that didn't work, they took drastic measures to secure him U.S. citizenship by expediting his visa process, withholding his Nazi affiliation from the U.S. State Department, and booking him tickets on a luxury cruise ship to the States. When he arrived, He was told by a CIA operative that his affiliation with the CIA had been terminated and never to contact them again unless it was an urgent emergency. And that urgent emergency took the form of a day in May of 1960, when his old pal Eichmann resurfaced in Argentina, where he was kidnapped by Israeli operatives and transferred to Israel, where he would later be tried and executed. When that news reached Bolsheving, he immediately jumped to the conclusion that he was next and contacted the CIA. So the CIA at this point was desperate to keep their involvement with Bolsheving a secret and agreed not to turn him over to Israel and to actively hide his information from the U.S. Justice Department. From that day forward, he worked, and this kills me, he worked at a computer leasing company.
Can you imagine like somebody from like a local office is like, yeah, we need to like rent a few computers, and a war criminal is like, yeah, sir, I could take you at the terminal over here. Can you please give me your information? Like, huh?
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
That just baffles me that people could have been talking to this customer service agent, and it was a former, not just a former Nazi, but a former higher up in the SS.
A war criminal is telling Barbara, hey, ma'am, we're doing the best that we can. Like, I'm gonna do everything I can do for you today. Absurdism. Absurdism is what it is.
Yeah, it's insane. It's just a crazy image to me. But it's not terribly important, because eventually it went out of business because there was a financial scandal, and his wife committed suicide, stuff happened, it's fine. And in 1979, the US government began digging into Bolsheving's affiliation with the Nazi Party. The Justice Department found out that he had concealed the extent of his affiliation and tried to deport him. He surrendered his U.S. citizenship, but he died in America from a degenerative brain disease before he could leave the country. So, for all intents and purposes, no punishment. Now that I've given you sort of a biography of these men and what they did, what is it that all of these people have in common other than being Nazis? Man,
Science.
What was it? No, right! They were all employed and protected by the CIA.
Right.
These are the people that our government not only chose to protect from justice for their crimes against humanity, they sacrificed justice, period, for awful, shoddy intel. To put it in terms of one particularly apt Guardian article, quote, "The Nazis were terrible spies." These men were given $1.5 million a year, the equivalent of $15.6 million today, to basically live out their glory days and revamp their Nazi allegiance in Europe for a few more decades and give fuck all to the US government, which honestly serves us right. And now I bring you to the part that actively...
Was every other country at the Nuremberg trials like, these are horrible people and they're interrogating them?
Yes.
And the U.S. this is like some kind of glorified job interview?
Pretty much.
Like, we're just taking note of like,
Fuck.
oh, wait, hold on, if I could interrupt you, Germany. Did you say that you were a rocket scientist? And France is like, you cannot seriously be asking them that right now.
No,
and the Americans like, well, hold on. How many years of experience do you have? Like, England's
in the corner and is like, these acts of killing millions and millions of people, you've tortured millions and millions of people, and but, so you said you skinned them alive and dipped them in, what was it?
Ammonia? Yeah.
Would you consider yourself a chemist?
And if you were to say, would you work better with a team or by yourself?
Oh my god.
I just cannot believe that people were present at the Nuremberg trials and hired them.
And paid them millions.
Paid them millions of dollars a year to just be Nazis some more.
Be Nazis.
And I get paid $12 an hour to work at a donut. Fuck off. I really cannot.
We're laughing because we're in shock.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so now is the time where I bring you to the part that actively keeps me up at night.
That wasn't it? That none of that does?
Am I right?
Come on.
So, I realized the connection to all of this right now. We are in an era where neo-Nazism is borderline common.
Yeah.
On the best blogging site ever, Tumblr.com, we're seeing policies that allow white supremacist and neo-Nazi blogs, but not pictures of nipples. We have children being recruited into neo-Nazi circles via in-game chats in online video games. The KKK has endorsed our president. The KKK and white supremacist rallies are being held on college campuses, sometimes committing actual physical violence, and are being defended by those in power. My dad said to me not long ago that he doesn't understand what happened to America, and that when he was growing up, it was just part of the rhetoric to hate and silence Nazis because they're monsters, and we know that they're monsters. But what happened is that our government continued and continues to support white supremacy and the Nazi ideology so long as it continues to benefit them. These people they hired didn't stop being Nazis once their feet hit American soil. They just spread their rhetoric to anyone who would listen, and now they had a new audience. Nazism and white supremacy are growing in America because we actively supported their movements for decades. End rant.
Bad call on our part.
This was an incredible episode. Brooke, you did such a really good job.
Yeah.
Depressing.
Seriously, dude.
Horrific. Incredible.
I also recall during the presidential election when, David Duke, the president of the KKK, endorsed Donald Trump, and everyone in Donald Trump's, cabinet was like, you need to not accept his endorsement. And it took him 2 days to not accept it. He was sitting in a room and they're like, he is literally the leader of the KKK. And he doesn't answer and they're like, sir. And he's like, I'm thinking.
Yeah. Really, really quickly, I am going to leave you with a quote from the CIA's website.
Oh, I hate leaving on quotes. But I do it every time. But go ahead.
I'll comment on it because I can't not. It was a quote from the CIA's website that was in response to a book written about this whole thing called Operation Paperclip: The Secret Intelligence Program to Bring Nazi Scientists to America. In the review, they concede that the author, Annie Jacobson, does do a good job of piecing together this fairly extensive narrative, but qualifies this with this quote. The Soviets similarly captured and used German scientists for their own defense programs. That side of the story is not covered in this book. Even with the knowledge, someone wrote that review recently. With the knowledge that the CIA had once hired and protected war criminals for the sole purpose of having bigger bombs and more intel than the next guy, this jackass couldn't keep his head out of his ass long enough not to say, but the Soviets were doing it too, so... I guess I shouldn't be surprised, should I?
Wow. Yeah.
Gang, what did we all learn today?
So,
Bree, would you like to go first?
We have to do our what kept us up at night part.
Yeah.
As if
who
it
was first
obvious.
in the series? Olivia, you were first in the series, right? So why don't you go first?
Okay.
Way to put her on the spot.
Sorry.
So, again, I'm a huge history nerd. I love history memes. And I think very often, when you see a history meme and you don't see them all the time, they are very jarring. I've sent you guys many, and you were just like, whoa! You know what I mean? And I get it.
Because they're true.
Yeah, it's so when I did Guatemala, I always knew it was a thing. There's a running joke of America sees a country going, hey, this communism thing seems pretty interesting, and before they could even finish their sentence, they topple the government. Reading those papers though, and I wasn't able to really show how the indifference in the reports towards human lives the reports are so much worse than the events themselves, and the events themselves are horrific. And, you know, I knew about MK Ultra, but I didn't realize how pervasive it was. And I knew a little, I don't think I knew like anything about Paperclip. I actually think I did confuse it with something else, but I was aware that we recruited a shitload of Nazi scientists. Yeah, we literally would not have been able to do the atomic bomb without Nazi scientists. Not saying that in a like, we wouldn't have been able to, but like we sacrificed prosecuting war criminals to just have big dick energy
To create
you know
a
what I
bomb
mean?
that would
Even-
go on to murder millions more
Millions
civilians.
of people.
Right,
Yeah.
not even prosecute them, but pay them millions of dollars.
Yes.
Okay.
It's insane to me. I think I was the least shocked out of all of them, because at some point you would just say something horrible and I'd be like, yeah, that sounds about correct.
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
it's hard to make it through my thick exoskeleton when it comes to being disappointed in the US government. I guess I'm just nothing matters. That's the spiral I've been in for the past couple of weeks.
Oh, buddy.
And, you know, we're the baddies. Like,
We
we've done
sure
horrible, horrible things, saying that we're the country of opportunity. And, like, so many people who have been talking about Guatemala, you know, or the CIA's, like, drugging of people, like, come off as, like, wacky conspiracy nuts, and we just kind of minimize how bad it is in the media.
Yeah.
So to read it yourself, you get why people lose their mind reading about the atrocities of the United
Sure.
States government. Just, it's so hard to piece together where I'm at headspace-wise, just because it's all so much. But if
Yeah.
I were to put it on, like, one big pivotal change, nothing shocks me by the deplorable actions of governments anymore. Like, it's just my response to a lot of bad things right now is, yeah, that seems about right, you know? And that's a bummer, and that's a sad change in myself, but it is what it is.
And I don't
So
think
Bree-
we want to confuse that with apathy, because
No,
it's
it's called depression.
look it up, sweetie. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I don't want to say, like, if somebody showed me something really fucked up, I'd be like, who really cares?
Right.
It's more
No,
of, like,
yeah.
this haunting, yeah,
Yeah.
that seems about correct.
Yeah, that's part of
So
the
basically,
course.
right, it's yeah, I mean, it's like when you're getting a tattoo, you know? The first couple lines are pretty painful, and then you hit that third line, you're in a point of shading where you're like, it's painful, but, you know, it is what I've been used to, and you get numb to it. But I
Which
think
is-
that doesn't make
Oh,
it
no,
okay
sorry.
to sit back and not talk about
Right.
it.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
But
Yeah, and I think-
sad.
That's a good point, that I'm just so, like, I'm used to hearing this. So many people in the US are used to hearing about this. I think that's why there's this, what is it? You can find the word. What am I talking about? Where nothing really matters. What's that philosophy called?
Oh, nihilism.
Nihilism?
Yeah.
Like, there's this growing nihilism in, like, Gen Z and everything like that.
Right.
And just making fun of everything in memes because it just, we've heard it all. Like, everything's bad. Like, we can't be shocked by anything anymore with a 24-hour news cycle
Yeah.
and well-reported history and constant updates on social media. Like, all of us are like, well,
But-
life sucks and then we die, I guess. Like,
Right.
that's, you know, and that's
Yeah.
sobering, and that's
But then
what
kids
I've
our
learned.
age talk
Yeah.
about having mental illness and like anxiety and depression, and then adults are like, I wonder why.
You're like, so shocking, right?
You know, like, the amount of, like, constant mental health jokes that, like, go around at UCLA when we're all studying, and somebody, like, just says, man, I wish I were dead, and everybody in the room is like, big mood. Like, you know, because it's...
Which
How
doesn't
do you
make that...
react
We
to it
also want to
anymore?
advocate that it doesn't make that okay. The negative
No.
mental health stuff,
Well, yeah, that's the
not
point.
okay.
It's awful and a
Right.
maladaptive symptom of where we're at as a young culture. It's a bad thing, just straight up and down.
Yeah.
By the way, if you want to combat that, you will have to work at it actively and make an effort to tell yourself other things instead of, I want to die. It's really hard,
Yeah.
but it's
Yeah.
worth it because, hey,
Yeah.
you're making things worse by saying you want to die all the time.
Yep. Yep.
So,
I guess,
uh,
what I took from this series was, I heard Olivia's, and I was just shell-shocked, by what our government is capable of. But growing up in, the American education system, I was taught that we're the good guys,
Right.
and we're the ones who give aid, and, like, you know, we're the heroes, right? Whatever.
right.
But and every country, I think, does that in its own sense, you know? But I think I'm just completely frightened at what our country is truly capable of. Because with Olivia's, it's like they did all of that for money and for just a little bit of more power, you know? And like the threat of communism really wasn't it. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, at least for me, like, it definitely had fuel behind that, but for me it was more of a money and land and, like, big dick energy type of fucking, you know, dominance weird thing. And then when I got to mine and I started researching, it was, they were literally drugging people with mental illness. And not even people with, like severe, like, schizophrenia. These were people who were coming in with postpartum depression.
Right.
And on top of that, they did drug people with severe schizophrenia with LSD, which sent them into suicidal episodes. And that our government just went, yep, we did that. Also, we don't have all the information on it, because most of those boxes were destroyed. And this one that we have is all the information, and it was just randomly found in a basement.
But Bree,
right?
don't they have to legally declassify
Fuck off.
that?
I will leave this call right now.
And then with Brooks, it's like that. Brooks, yours was horrific. I was actually thinking about doing Operation Paperclip, but then I was like, you know what? Too much.
Yeah.
But I'm so glad that you did it, because now we can suffer through it together.
Great.
But that's just, like, I mean, I said during one point in this recording, it was literal pure human evil.
Right.
I don't, like, evil for me, like, I guess, as a concept, I don't know if it, like, exists or not, but, like, today, what I can say is yes. Yes, it does.
Sure do.
It sure does. And that's what I learned from this series, is that evil exists and the United States pays evil people to do evil things. Olivia?
That would be mine, actually.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think mine is a blend of the two of you. Which is, like, the lack of surprise and then the knowledge of evil. And I think the thing that has changed is that I know that this stuff is still happening, and we won't know about it, ever. Well, we will, but we'll be old and wrinkly, because it takes, like, what, 50 years for it to become declassified? And so
Well,
you know, with the Guatemalan coup, that there is a certain distance to that like we were always going to be able to learn about it, right? Because it's far past then.
right.
And then with MK Ultra, it's like barely declassified, right? Like just within the last couple decades.
Right.
Is that right?
Right, yeah.
And I wonder, because in doing my research, there actually is a website that outlines year to year the atrocities committed by the CIA. It's in like a timeline. And it's
Love that.
it goes literally year to year to year. There isn't a year off when it stopped. So I'm just kind of thinking, I wonder what's happening right now.
Yeah.
And I mean, a lot of the stuff we just won't get to find out what's happening right now. But we can be
Isn't
sure
that horrific?
that it's happening. Yes.
Right, it's
Yes, it is.
horrific that we understand that it's happening, but it's also horrific the stuff that's, like, just being like, oh, this is definitely happening. Like, the things that are being shown to us actively in media is just horrific enough.
So what about the stuff
what are they not showing?
that's being kept a secret from the public? Exactly. Yeah, it's...
Right.
Okay. Yeah.
Yikes.
So this was a huge downer. Next time
Yeah,
will
I
be
can't really take any more of
serial
this.
killers, so that'll be easier.
Oh, thank
Woo!
God. Oh my God, thank God.
I already
It'll
have
just
mine
be
picked out.
This is a
killers.
sad day when we're going to be talking about serial killers is a oh thank God moment comparatively.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Can you imagine if we had to do modern slavery
No.
after this?
Oh my God. Oh
No.
my God. Can I say something? Modern slavery should be talked about, and I really want to do it on this podcast. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Very important. That's obviously why we put it up. We care about it. But I just need a break.
Yeah, for
And the fact that
Yeah.
serial killers is my break, you can fuck off.
We have fun
I try
jobs.
so hard for this podcast.
It's
So much research.
Olivia was like, "You're gonna need a shower cry," and I was like, "Nah, I'll be fine." And then I texted her later, and I was like, "Olivia, I'm getting mad. I think I need a shower cry."
Yeah,
What did I
absolutely.
say? I think I said what you're gonna do is you're gonna start researching for a few hours, and then you're gonna need a shower cry, and then you're gonna drink some wine and keep researching, and then you're gonna have to do one of those things where you just lean in the side of your shower with one hand and just let the water rush over you, and then you're gonna realize you're out of wine and you can't afford more because you're in college, and then you're gonna sit with it for a while, and then you're gonna finish your research, and then you're gonna lose some sleep. But then it'll all be over, and
I was excited to get it out today. I just needed it to be out of my brain, I think.
yeah, it's so cathartic to do all the research, but then have it gone,
Yeah.
you know?
Yes.
Just like, now you know, and everything's gonna be okay.
Yeah.
Probably.
So you can follow us on Instagram.
Yeah. I love how
At
that is like a thing now.
ttkmeup.com. No? Do we not want to do this now?
What's up?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's end it. Please
You
end
can
it.
follow us on Instagram at ttkmeup as well as Twitter. We have a website, ttkmeup.com, where you can connect with us and look at our Patreon and look at the beautiful art that's on there. Please give us a like and review on iTunes and subscribe. It does us much. It just promotes us in the algorithm. We say it all the time, but please feel free to contact us on social media. We love interacting with you. Every time somebody ats us, we get, butterflies. It's very nice.
It's wonderful.
We got an iTunes review the other day that made us feel warm and fuzzy about how we report well and you learn things, and that was nice.
Thank you.
I
realized I've been doing something dumb. So I've been saying, next time, you should tell us about this, and we'll interact with you about the episode we're recording. And I realized that by the time you hear us say these words, our next recording session is literally in 24 hours. So by the time you hear this, we will be recording our Campfire Horror Stories tomorrow. So
yes,
I'm going to post on Twitter for you in the past to tell you, hey, we're accepting submissions for Campfire Horror Stories. That'll be next week. If you want to hear your stories read by one of the gals, you can email us at ttkmeup@gmail.com, and we will pour through them and select a couple. Maybe we can do a drawing if we get enough. I don't know how to choose. I'm bad at choosing things. But from now on, I will be reporting things 2 weeks ahead, because that's how this works. Sorry.
Yeah, you know what? I don't know why I didn't think of that either.
Yeah.
It's a really good point, RB.
We are still trying our best.
It's a
We
learning
tried so
curve.
hard. We got so far. And in the end, it doesn't even matter.
Okay, well, on that
There we
note, ending on Bohemian Rhapsody, which is
No,
a
what?
love letter to coffee.
No,
What?
no,
That's not
no.
Bohemian Rhapsody, you fool.
I just heard it, Nothing Really Matters, and I'm so tired. So
That is Linkin
It's-
Park,
I've tried
my
so
friend.
hard. I've got so far, and in the end, it doesn't even matter. No.
We're embarrassing. We love you. It's been real.
it's been real, deuces.